Hi. In today's lesson, we're going to practice writing explicit and recursive arithmetic formulas. So everything we do today will be based on an arithmetic formula. All right, so let's look at this first problem. It says the teacher asked the students to create a formula for the sequence 5, 8, 11, 14, and so on. And then Anthony has come up with the formula a sub n is equal to 5 plus n minus 1 in parentheses, all times 3. First, is his formula correct, and how do you know? So one way that we can tell whether or not his formula is correct is to try it for any particular term. So we know from looking at the sequence, we know that the first term, or a sub 1, is 5. So if I substitute a 1 in place of n, will I get a 5? Likewise, we know that the fourth term in the sequence is 14. If I put a 4 in place of n, will I get a 14? So let's test it out for the first and the fourth terms and see if they work. So a sub 1 would be, based on Anthony's formula, would be 5 plus 1 minus 1 times 3. Well, that'd be 0 times 3. So that would be just 5. And does that check out? Well, the first term in the sequence is 5, so that one checks out. Let's try the fourth term. So then a sub 4 would be equal to 5 plus 4 minus 1 times 3. So that'd be 3 times 3. So that'd be 5 plus, 9? And 5 plus 9 is 14. Is 14 the fourth term? Yes, it absolutely is. So this term also works. Wonder how he came up with that. So let's look at that sequence. Looks like we're adding 3 each time. So notice we were adding 3 each time. So there's the 3. And the 5 is the first term. Okay, and then in parentheses, we just have that n minus 1, which is similar to what I was showing you earlier. So let's go ahead and finish answering this. So it definitely works. So is his formula correct? We'll go ahead and say yes. Is it an explicit or a recursive formula? This one would be explicit. Okay, because you can use this to find any particular term in the sequence. And does it look like the formulas we have been creating? Not exactly, no, right? It looks a little bit different because mostly you've been dealing with in the parentheses, or you haven't had the parentheses. Mostly you've been using that n, but now we've got that n minus 1 there. Are they the same? So this formula, let's come over here and simplify it. A sub n, I'm going to write it down just as it is. So if I were to simplify it, remember I can distribute that 3. So that'd be plus 3n minus 3. 5 minus 3 is 2. So if we simplify this, it simplifies to a sub n is equal to 2 plus 3n. That would be in that slope-intercept form, right? So that's how you are used to seeing it. But it's harder to see that 3, we see this 3 right here, right, as our common difference, but you don't see that 2 anywhere, right? That 2 would have to be the 0 term, okay, but there's not a 0 term, right? It's just the first term. All right, let's go to the second part. So Johnny came up with a different formula. He used j sub 1 is equal to 5, so the first term is 5, and he came up with j sub n plus 1 is equal to j sub n plus 3. And is his formula correct? Well, he's definitely got the first term correct. Let's test it out for the second term. Well, term 2 is 8, so if I wanted to know term 2, so j sub 2 would have to be equal to the first term plus 3. Well, the first term is 5. 5 plus 3 does equal 8. So yes, this checks out. Again, you can test it out, right, with the different terms in the sequence and see if it matches up. Is it an explicit or recursive formula? This one is going to be recursive. And does this one look like other ones that we've been creating? Yes and no. Usually you see j sub n equals j sub n minus 1 plus 3. He wrote his a little bit differently with the n plus 1 and the n here. But it'll still work out. Okay, it still ends up being the same thing. Okay, let's go to the next page. So it says, if you struggled before coming up with an explicit formula for an arithmetic sequence, then you can just use this general equation below. You just need to fill in the missing information. The only thing I don't like about this formula right here is that they've got that D on the right side of the parentheses, and it's much easier to have the D on the left side. But in order to do this, you must be given the blank term. So that's the first term, that a sub 1, and the common difference, that's your D. Oops, let's see if I can spell that correctly. So you need to know the common difference and the first term. This is a formula for an explicit formula. So let's try it out. It says for the sequence 100, 97, 94, 91, ... Write an explicit formula for the sequence. So let's use that pattern, that formula, if you will, that we see up there. So a sub n is equal to a sub 1, so that's your first term, which in this case is 100, plus they've got that n minus 1 times d, times the difference. So they didn't tell us the difference, so let's figure it out. So if I go from 100 to 97, I actually subtracted 3. So we're subtracting 3 each time. So that would be times negative 3. Instead of me writing that negative 3 on the right side, I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to put the negative 3 in minus 1 there. Okay? I'm going to put it on that side instead. And then we can also clean this up. Plus a negative is the same thing as just minus. So this is our explicit formula. A sub n is equal to 100 minus 3 times n minus 1. Then it says to find the 20th term in the sequence. So we're going to find a sub 20. So that's going to be 100 minus 3 times 20 minus 1. And then I can just solve this. Well, 20 minus 1 is 19. So now I'm going to do... Let's see, what is 3 times 19? 3 times 19 is 57. And then 100 minus 57 is 43. Okay, so now let's have you take a turn, okay? So go ahead and do number 2, parts A and B. And then I also want you to use this, I think that's the last page, yep, to complete this sheet. So go ahead and pause the video, do problems 2, through 6. So pause the video and do that now. Welcome back. So now you're going to check over your answers for problems 2 through 6. Here's problem 2, so you may need to pause the video to make sure you have the correct information. Make the necessary correction on your paper. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom out so you can see 3 and 4. Pause the video so that way you can check over your answers and make any necessary corrections. And then here is numbers 5 and 6. Again, pause the video so you can make the necessary corrections. Okay, hopefully you did well with this. Again, if you have any questions, jot them down and feel free to get in contact with me or your teacher so that you can get additional help. Go ahead and submit this and then work on your independent practice.